Sorry, I was still on mute. Hi, good afternoon. At this point, it is now 4 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and kick off session 4. Okay, so session 4 today is CCSQ QuickSight ML Insights. So for those who are just joining us, I do want to just run through some quick administrative items. Just a reminder that as speakers present, please remember to stay muted, minimize interruptions and distractions. If you do have a question during our presentation, please submit it using our Zoom chat feature. At the end of the session, our questions will be answered by the session speaker. And then again, just to note that that is time permitting. Obviously, if our session speaker does go over, we get some additional information that needs to be shared. We may run out of time for Q&A, but we will always make sure that those are shared once our sessions wrap up. So with that, I'm going to be passing things over to Sarah Davis, who's Senior Product Owner on the STAR team. So Sarah, if you would like to kick things off.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm glad to see everybody. Let's jump in. We're going to talk about QuickSight. And next slide. We've had a lot of new contractors come on board since the spring data camp. So I just wanted to quickly refresh everybody that CCSQ QuickSight is the BI tool. It's fully managed, runs on AWS. We integrate to data sources like Databricks, Amazon, different databases. You can also bring your own flat file data and upload it directly into QuickSight. QuickSight is your standard business intelligence tool. Create visuals, reports, interactive drill down visuals for your end users. Part of what differentiates the dashboarding capability within QuickSight from like Databricks the last session was that you can embed dashboards from QuickSight into other applications. So we have groups like eQRS and iKeys who do that. You can embed QuickSight visuals onto websites. So that there's a bigger extent as to where you can publish dashboards that are available in QuickSight that you create. QuickSight access is all integrated with HARP, so you can either use your HARP or EUAID. You automatically get access without requesting a role to CCSQ QuickSight, and you can log in to idm.cms.gov, click on the CCSQ QuickSight chiclet, and you'll get to see dashboards that others have created and have shared with everybody within the CCSQ QuickSight instance. If you need additional access to a shared folder, your group, you've taken over another contractor, you have to request a role in HARP for that particular organization, and then that will automatically, once approved in HARP, will get you access within QuickSight to those shared folders. Next slide, please. So I'm a very visual person, so I always like to see where I am, what's around me. And so this is just a diagram of kind of what the data process is. As a user, you log in, you can get access to the various different analytic tools within CCSQ, QuickSight being one of them. Kind of behind the scenes is, data coming from SASVI and Databricks are available and connected back through to QuickSight through an Amazon S3 bucket and then hosted externally on our Redshift CCSQ data warehouse instance. So that's kind of how that data magically goes from your SASVI workbench or your published folders in SASVI and Databricks to QuickSight. Next slide. So I'm not going to recap how to use QuickSight from the very beginning. We spent an hour session this spring going through all of that. So I would say go check that out. If you're one of the new contractors who've come on board since that data camp session, they're recorded. Please go back there. A lot of questions that are there that are not always easily answered within the CCSQ or within the Amazon QuickSight documentation. We cover a lot of those details in that presentation. But this presentation, next slide, is going to focus on something that we haven't talked about before, and that is machine learning insights. AWS calls this ML insights. And this is available right now today to everybody within the enterprise instance of CCSQ QuickSight. So I've added a link in the slides here that will give you kind of like the very quick high-level tutorials and will also then guide you to all the user guides that Amazon provides for that. There's three main characteristics of ML insights: anomaly detection, forecasting, and auto narratives. So that's what we're going to talk about today to just show you what's capable and how to get started with it. And then we'll go from there. Next slide, please. So ML insights, like anything machine learning related, all depends upon your data. So there's requirements of your data in order for ML insights to be used on. So dimensions, date dimensions, and one metric. If you want to use anomaly detection, it requires a minimum of 15 data points. Forecasting, obviously, more data is better. Depending upon your granularity of your date dimension, it's going to vary. So if you're looking at years, they need 32 years worth of data. If you're looking at quarters, 35 quarters, weeks, 35 weeks, days, minutes, hours goes down as well. Check out the AWS documentation for that. I don't think anybody in our environment goes down to hourly and minute data, but if you do, there are some data set requirements. So just be aware of that before you get started. All right, next slide, please. So we'll start off with looking at anomaly detection. As the name implies, it's really looking at your data to identify outliers and trends. So I am going to take over sharing to do a demo, if that's okay. So we just grabbed a data set off of data.cms.gov. So it's publicly available data. It is working on loading right now. And we created a very simple, it was COVID data from 2020, looking at cases and breaking it down by state and then provider. So let me maximize this for you to get an example. So this just is the data mapped out. And anomaly detection is only in the analysis. So part of looking at that data means it's not going to be in your dashboard per se, but you can create an anomaly detection and then you can explore them. So it will take that visual that I have and it'll focus on like a particular state. And here it'll show you, oh, look at that. There was a spike that was outside of like the normal bandwidth within your data. And you can scan and see, and it'll call out if there's, gaps in your data, missing data, or if there's like an outlier event. So this is a nice way to kind of visualize a data testing, data quality step, right, of your data itself to make sure that you haven't missed anything. If you've, joined data and you're presenting it in this visual, it'll help show some of those things that you can't always get with like unit testing or aggregate data. You have the ability to also sort things, analyze like the anomaly detection in different ways. You can go around and provide, different percentage of thresholds that you want to analyze for, and that sort of thing. So that's just, again, this is all based upon your own data. So it will look different when you're using your own data. But it's just a way to also show kind of just what's capable. When you go through your data, it'll also show you anomalies by date, if there was enough here. So that's just a way to kind of get into it on the analysis side. The anomaly detection does not show up in your dashboard, so it's only available as a dashboard developer or deployer. Do you get that ability to create and explore the anomaly detections with ML Insight? All right, can I jump back to the slides, or do you want me to pick up the slides?
Sorry, I was still on mute. I can jump back, that's fine.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Thanks.
Okay, so that should be where we left off, right?
Yep. So powered forecasting. So ML powered forecasting. So Amazon has released their random cut forest algorithm, one specific for ML insights. You don't have the ability to go in and change the algorithm to a different one that you want. This is just the one that they use for everything in QuickSight. But it is able to, there's some customizations you can use and how it applies to your data set. It does have the ability to detect seasonality changes, or you to at least tell it there's seasonality changes. It'll find trends, and it can impute missing data values. So again, this is only available in analysis, so your end users of the dashboard won't be able to see it. And here's the link to the Amazon documentation on forecasting. So I'm going to ask to share again. Thank you. All right. So using that same data set as before, we were able to create a few different visuals that indicate forecasting. So here we're able to, our data goes through the end of 2020, but because we have enough data sets or data points in our data set, we could enable the forecasting. So you'd go here, and instead of edit forecast, it would say add a forecast. So if we edit the forecast, here's where you can define how far forward and backwards you want to go. You can change the predictive interval, and here's where you can also set seasonality changes. So if you know, hey, springs we're gonna hit like a higher threshold, and fall is gonna be less, you can kind of play around with that as well. There's also boundaries, so you can set like a maximum and a minimum. Um, Remember that a lot of these types of tools have always been built around like sales data. So sometimes you might have to indicate like there is going to be a minimum. We were practicing around with some of our QuickSight usage data, and we were able to predict a negative login into QuickSight account because we had to actually define like you can't get below 0, even though you could go negative with like financial data. So I want to call that out because if you see all of a sudden things going negative and you're like, my data can't ever be negative, here's a way that you can put in like a lower bound that it won't go past. And then one of the other really cool things is you can do that up to 3 different dimensions. So here we have confirmed cases by staff, residents, and then also resident death. So you can see that we can forecast on 3 different lines in a single visual. That's also really cool. There's also a what if capability within the forecasting. So if you go to your visual and you click on a data point, this what if analysis pop-up shows up. And if you click on that, here's where you can say, all right, I want a scenario where on X date, I know we're going to have this number of events or something like that. Or you can select it for a time range. And I know I'm going to say in 3 months' time, we're going to have a lot fewer cases. And here's where you can see the forecast or the prediction can take that what if, like if we did this, this is where we think we're going to end up in terms of the forecast decrease. Here you'll see we get below that 0 threshold, like you can't have negative cases of COVID, but this is just to show you the capability of doing that analysis so that you can play around with whatever modeling you want, or just kind of interrogate the data a little bit more using this methodology. All right. And then the last one, Julia, is auto narratives. So this is a capability that's, again, available out of the box right now. It uses natural language to summarize data that it sees in a visual, and it will then create text out of that. We found this to be helpful, but also a big precautionary needs to be applied to anybody who wants to explore this. Um, it's a bit clunky to kind of get started on, but once you get going, I think there's an opportunity really to create visuals that will change as your data changes on long-lasting dashboards. If you have frequently updated data, it can change based upon the new inputs of that visual. And it has the ability to kind of do some more complex narratives than what is available otherwise. I will put big cautionary things out there that with a lot of these ML tools, they can do what's called like hallucinating of data, where they might start talking about data that you actually haven't defined within the data set. That can happen. So if you do set up auto narratives, please, please be very careful and mindful about reviewing the content and does it actually make sense to you? Don't think of this as something you can just very blindly turn on and let it take over. It's auto narrative, but it still needs, I think, some good oversight. All right, I will take over sharing one last time. Okay, let me jump out of the what if analysis. So down here, we've created an auto narrative customization. How to get there is you would take one of your visuals and you would add an insight, and that will then give you the computation type that you want out of the box. You can always change it and add to it later. But let me show you what we have set up already. So it's going to look kind of scary. There's all these extra fields in there that relate back to the fields within the data. It does require knowing some of that, but once you kind of get started, it should become clear to you. So it can auto-generate this text, and it'll predefine some of like the data fields in there, and you can go in and change them, update them, remove them, put in your own calculations or computations in this case. You can set the variables, you can create functions. So if you wanted to add some numbers together, you can do that in an auto narrative with outside of your visual. We played around with a lot of the formatting. So you can see below the preview, you can color code things. You can move them into the middle of the text field. You can, do a whole bunch of different cool things to catch people's attention if you need to. And all of this was done using the auto narrative capabilities. It did take us a while to kind of like understand all the nuances, and I'm sure there's even more that we haven't discovered based upon the type of data set that we selected. But we wanted to call everyone's attention to this and to take a look at it, see if it's helpful. If you wish this was here, this is available for you guys to start looking at and playing around with your data. But just remember the word of caution that it is auto narrative and sometimes you might have to correct it. And that's why they give you the nice preview down below to make sure that everything kind of looks right and isn't just pulling random bits of data and hallucinating text. All right. And so, yeah, with that, I will open it up to questions.
Sorry about that. My deck gets sticky, I think, with the like transition between. Right now I didn't see any questions in the chat, but I don't know if now that we're moving to the Q&A portion, if we'll get some more.
All right, more of a comment than a question. I found that forecasting doesn't work if your data is calculated from parameters and formula. That option just isn't there. That is, I believe, correct. If you're, Latanya, I think that's if you're joining within the data within QuickSight, or even data that you've already joined elsewhere and just brought into QuickSight. Sorry to put you on the spot. Yes, I can share this summarized in QuickSight. Okay. I'll go back and make sure, but I do believe that is correct. In terms of sharing this dashboard, I can after this meeting, I can share it with everybody in QuickSight. And that way, if you're a developer or a deployer, you can kind of come in and poke around on this since it's public data. See, there's a question. Amazon warns that ML-powered anomaly detection has costs associated. Do we need to worry about a cost estimate before you? No. We haven't found anything that costs more than like a half of a penny when this is done. So I would say it's there. We're already kind of paying for it, and any additional cost is incredibly minimal at this point. Any questions? All right. If you think about it later, or if you start playing around with us and need some help or need some assistance or guidance or have general questions, reach out to us on the help QuickSight Slack channel.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And then just another plug for Sarah's sessions at our previous data camp. Definitely review those. They were really well received. We got a lot of really great feedback on those. So also, like always, a great resource to go back to any of our previous data camp sessions, but I know that one was especially awesome and had so many great positive comments after it was wrapping up. So with that, our next session is going to be fast overview. And that's going to start at 4:30. So we're going to take about a 7-ish minute break right now. So in the meantime, I will get that deck up and running, and then we will resume at 4:30. So we'll see you back here shortly. Thank you. Thanks so much, Sarah.